Okay, lovely. Welcome everybody. Welcome to our first meeting of this year. We're new members and we have two new committee members, and we have David Thomas, our new portfolio for finance. Welcome, Adam, but we haven't Karina isn't with us today. As you can see, some of the new members, we have Aon with us, who are our advisors. We got George, and then George, is Kenneth here? No, Kenneth's not on now, is he?
Yes,
no,
he
no.
is.
Oh, he's on the bottom there. I said we have Kenneth and Benjamin. George and Kenneth are two regulars, and Benjamin's coming to do some specialist updates. Is that right, Benjamin?
I'm not doing the specialist update. I'm here for the quarterly report. I think Corey will hopefully join at some point.
Okay, lovely.
That's right.
Welcome.
We'll get Corey to dial in a little bit later, Peter.
Okay. Cheers, George. Okay then. Item 1, apologies.
No apologies, but as I said, Councillor Karina isn't with us, so whether she's having difficulties getting into the system, I will send her another invite to support her.
Thanks, Carol. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest from members relating to items to be considered on the agenda. First, I'd like to declare it's the usual one, I'm a member of a Powys Pension Fund.
Likewise, Chair. Thank you.
And myself, Chair, Councillor Hugh.
And myself.
Thanks, Adam. Okay then, thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. They've been circulated. Can I sign them as a true and correct record, please? Can I propose a seconder?
Yeah, happy to move, Chair.
Thanks, Errol. Seconder, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody happy with them? I think by the quiet, everybody's happy.
Yep.
Lovely. Thank you. Item 4, pension board minutes. Oh, sorry, I forgot to welcome for the new members. Gerard is our chair of the pension board, and this is your item on the agenda, isn't it, Gerard?
Yeah, that's right, Chair. Thank you,
So
Chair.
over to you.
Well, thank you. As this will be the first encounter with Pension Board for the new members of the committee, I thought I'd just take a brief moment to talk about our main functions, and those are shown halfway down page 13, namely to assist the scheme manager to secure compliance. So that's compliance with legislation, guidance, and anything that comes from the pension regulator. And the second function is focused there on the effective and efficient governance and administration of the scheme. Now, when you look at that, you realise there's no specific reference to investments, but what we do is focus on the process for investment decisions, and they comply with the relevant legislation and guidance. So we don't challenge any investment decisions or anything like that. We very much look at the process that was followed and the knowledge and understanding behind that. So it all fits in. I chair the Bedfordshire board as well, and I formerly chaired the Northumberland board before it merged with Tyne and Wear. And one of my board members up there came up with a very good phrase that the pension board is a friend of the pension committee. I'd written it down here. I can't find it.
Is that the critical but supportive friend?
Critical, thanks, Chris. Critical but supportive friend, and I think that really describes what we try and do on behalf of the committee and behalf of the officers. And this report back is sort of transparent. It saves the committee members having to trawl through the very detailed minutes that are rightly done of the board. So this is basically an executive summary. What we started about 3 or 4 years ago was that the board meetings actually precede the committee. So that enables us to look at draft policies and procedures, perhaps suggest some tweaks or whatever before they're presented to you. And that will feature in a moment. So that way we believe as a board we add value to the process, add value to the officers, add value to the committee. We make recommendations and we gain assurances, and on very rare occasions we may express some concerns, but I can assure you those are few and far between. So if we have a look at the paper you have in front of me, you'll note there are 2 recommendations there, and in both cases, those recommendations have been fed in via Chris to the business plan on the one hand, which is on the agenda, and the conflicts of interest policy, which is also integrated into the agenda. So the recommendations aren't explicit this time, they're integrated into later parts of the agenda, so I needn't really put any, give any detailed description to those. We also gain assurances on behalf of the committee, and there are 6 shown there. I'll just talk about the first one, which is checking that the officers feel confident that the annual benefit statements for scheme members will be ready by the statutory date of the 31st of August. And that, I'm pointing that one out because it's a really good example of how the board's role in ensuring compliance actually works. So if Chris had any issues that might threaten meeting that date, we would discuss what options there were to increase the likelihood of the date being made. Now, the good point about picking up that one is that Powys is one of the very, very few pension funds in England and Wales that has actually produced its annual benefit statement on target every single year. So that's a real compliment to the administration team, of whom we have high regard and respect. Just moving down to item 3, unfortunately, the meeting became inquorate towards the end. We couldn't look at the risk register, so what has come through to you today hasn't actually been looked at by the board, so we will revisit that on the loop backwards rather than the loop forwards. Final point, item 3.3, we've been really honoured with an invitation from the chair of the Local Government Pension Scheme Advisory Board. He's willing to attend the September meeting of the board. So that's a real feather in the cap for Powys. So we look forward to that. He's from Herefordshire, Councillor Roger Phillips. So we look forward to his presence at our next meeting. I'm very happy, Chair, to take any queries or questions or comments.
Thanks, Gerard. Thank you for that comprehensive report. Any questions? No. Okay. Lovely. Thank you. Do we just have to note this, Chris? Do we owe anything? Minutes or this item?
I think you, Chair, you just have to note it this time because there are no explicit recommendations this time.
Yeah. All happy to note this. I take by silence. Yeah. Thank you.
Very happy. So just to say, very good to have such an experienced pensions board with us, Jared. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Adam, and you. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, we're very lucky to have Jared. We have a good working relationship. So, yeah, lovely. Thank you. Item number 5, administration and governance update.
Yes, so to me, thank you, Chair. I thought, as I mentioned before the meeting, that this is a paper that I'll have to share on screen, and we will update the pack that's online after the meeting, just to avoid complications with changes of page numbers and whatnot. So I shall now share my screen and hopefully take you through the report as we go. So I'm just about to click share, so please let me know if you can't see the administration report. Hopefully you can now see a PDF in front of you. Does that come through?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. So this, as part of the report pack that you essentially had the appendices to this report. So apologies for any confusion that might have caused, but we'll work through this report now. So as committee will be aware, at each meeting I do try and provide an update on the 3 pillars that go into the management of the pension fund, those being administration, governance and investment. And these first couple of items on the agenda now will focus on the administration and the governance side. So this is an update for committee. In the interest of time, I won't go through every bullet point through all the reports because the report pack is pretty hefty, as you will have seen, but I will pick out those bits which I think are relevant and important to you, but I'm obviously free to take any questions, or we'll take any questions that you might have as we go. So if we look at 2.1 to start with, this is just to make the committee aware that the Scheme Advisory Board, which the chair of the board has just discussed, have published their latest scheme annual report for 2021. And it might seem a little out of date, but to do with the production dates of annual reports, they have to be published by the 1st of December. So the Scheme Advisory Board have collated data from that date back to end of March 2021. And so they've drawn out some highlights there from the report, just showing essentially that the LGPS is still growing, membership grew, assets grew. It remains in a positive cash flow position overall. Some indication of the scale, over 1.8 million pensioners were paid over the year. But I thought what was perhaps an interesting point was just this next to last bullet point, talking about COVID-19 and how that is impacting pension schemes, which is very important for a pension scheme, obviously, because it affects how long we might be paying benefits for in the future. So some work that they've done has identified there's been some drop in life expectancy, which is unfortunate. But it's something we do have to consider when we think about the liability side of a pension fund arrangement. So just some information in there for you. And then the last bullet point talks about investment charges having increased, primarily due to, I understand, the growth in assets as the volume under management grows. Performance fees or investment fees are a percentage of that goes up in line with it. But also important to note that administration and governance costs have remained broadly stable. Another key point to make committee aware of is the fact that the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, I'll refer to them as DLUC from now on, they've produced a Levelling Up paper, which makes reference to the intention of the government to ask the LGPS to publish a plan in respect of local investment. And local investment is, in the context of the UK, not necessarily local to Powys, although it could be the same thing, I guess. But it's expecting us to have to produce a plan on what we're going to do in respect of local investment, with an allocation of up to 5% of assets into these local types of investment, which we might discuss in a bit more detail as we move into the confidential section, and our Aon colleagues can perhaps feed into that later on. But important to let you know that it's out there. We will have to consider this as part of our decisions as we move forward. 2.3 was actually the first item that you see in your reports packs, and that's a letter from the Prudential. Not going to spend too much time on it, but essentially Prudential have been suffering some administration delays in terms of the additional contributions that our scheme members pay to them. Additional voluntary contribution is essentially an additional contribution that a scheme member pays on top of their normal scheme membership into a pot of money that's invested and used at the point of retirement. That might be to take as a lump sum or additional pension benefits. We've seen some delays in receiving the money back from Prudential to actually pay them out to scheme members, which Prudential have acknowledged, and they actually issued the response that you can see in front of you. And I've hyperlinked to it from this report as well, which I'll share later. So, but pleased to say we have seen some positive movements, and they have improved since this report was produced. So it's good to see they acknowledge the issues, they've addressed them, and we are now starting to see improvements come through. So that should be acknowledged as well. 2.4 talks about something that I've spoken about to the existing committee members previously, and this is a change to legislation in respect of additional voluntary contributions, AVCs, that I just talked about, and some change to legislation which is designed to help people who pay into what's called defined contribution pension arrangements, which is not like the LGPS, which is a defined benefit scheme. But what it's designed to do is it's designed to help those who pay into a defined contribution arrangement make informed decisions when it comes to using their money at retirement. So not essentially designed for the LGPS or public sector defined benefit schemes, but it has sort of impacted on us around the edges in respect of the defined contribution element we have, which is in respect of additional voluntary contributions. So the outcome of this essentially is that our administration team may now have to deal with some more administrative challenges as a result of this, and that's along the lines of having to help our scheme members in terms of booking appointments with Pensions Wise, making sure they attend these appointments, make sure they get the financial advice in terms of their defined contributions. So it's had a knock-on effect in changing the arrangements elsewhere onto the LGPS, and we're not yet fully understanding the administration impact on these because we haven't had a case yet. We're not talking thousands of people, we're talking a lot less than that. However, if it does end up taking a lot of time to administer this, then we'll have to think about what we need to do to manage that essentially. So just to make committee aware that there might be some additional administrative challenges as a result of this change to legislation. This report goes through what's expected of the administration team, which you can refer to outside the meeting, but please do let me know if you have any questions on that. 2.5 is to update committee on a change to the Finance Act in February 2022. And essentially there were 3 things in there which are relevant to the LGPS. Perhaps the important one is clause 10, the normal minimum pensions age increase from 55 to 57 from the 6th of April 2028. There's a requirement under disclosure regulations for us as scheme administrators to write to scheme members where there's a significant change to the regulations which may impact on them, and obviously a change in a retirement age is a fairly significant one. But the Local Government Association, the LGA, have determined that they don't feel that this is actually triggers that clause yet because it hasn't actually changed the local government pension scheme regulations. Our regulations haven't been amended to reflect this yet. Once that happens, that triggers that requirement within disclosure regulations, and we'll have to contact all our scheme members. However, having said all that, it's probably not a bad idea for us to let our scheme members know that this is coming, and we'll likely do so in the form of a newsletter that might accompany the annual benefit statements in the not too distant future. So a communications exercise for us to carry out as a result of this change to regulations, or this future change to regulations that we know is likely to come. 2.6 is just to let committee know there's a state pension age review piece of work ongoing. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, as it doesn't impact on the LGPS at this point, but I'm happy to take any questions that you might have once you've had the chance to digest this this bullet point and this section of the report later. Unless there are any questions, I'll go. Unfortunately, as I'm sharing my screen, I can't see any hands go up. So
No,
please
I'll
do
shout it to Chris if you
Okay.
want.
Thank you, Chair.
Or just remember to put their hand up or put.
Yeah, please let me know. Thanks. 2.7 is a section focusing on the LGPS investments in Russia. There's a couple of bullet points saying there what the government have done. Essentially, they wrote to all LGPS pension funds to advise us to keep up to date on any sanctions brought into place. And the LGPS in Wales via the Wales Pension Partnership and the Powys Pension Fund locally did actually respond to this very, very quickly and published a couple of statements to say that looking to disinvest from the Russian held investments where we can and as soon as practically possible. So the work is still ongoing on that. And because of the state of the Russian stock market and whatnot at the minute, not much progress has been made, but as soon as we possibly can, we will make these decisions as committee indicated in the last meeting. Okay, next one is just to make committee aware of some more potential administrative burden that's coming over the horizon in the form of pension dashboards. A quick bit of background: a pension dashboard is essentially a portal that a pension saver, any pension saver, not necessarily the LGPS pension saver, can log into and have access to all their pension information on one website. I think the intention is perhaps one day that you log into your online banking facility, for example, you click a button and you have access to all your pensions information all within one portal, essentially. So we're at the foundation stages of this project. It's a government initiative to help savers have access to their pension information easily and quickly. But obviously, as a pension scheme, we've got some requirements placed on us to be able to ensure that happens. And this is in the form of data, providing data in respect of our scheme membership to this portal so the member can have all their pension information that they need. It's expected that we'll have to interact with this ecosystem between October 2023 and April 2024, which is just over 12 months away from now, but it will come around very quickly. So we're going to be working with our software providers to make sure that we have something in place that makes this as accurate and as easy as it can be for the administration team when it arrives. But we are doing some preparation work for that by ensuring that our data is clean. We have a data improvement plan that we publish, and we do an annual data cleansing exercise where we monitor the quality of our data against the pensions regulator criteria, which you will see at a meeting in the future. But I guess the point to make is it is a strong requirement on us to keep our data of a good quality, which it already is, but to make sure we keep on top of that. And I thought it would just be useful to give a committee a quick update on the valuation as well. Obviously 2022, 2023 is the year that we work on the valuation of the pension fund. It's a triennial process, so we're in that period now. And just a couple of dates in this report, really. It's just to let committee know that we have submitted the data to the actuary on the 5th of July, who will now be crunching their way through all the data that we've provided, with the intention of producing a whole of fund report as soon as they can. I'm hopeful that we might be able to see that for the October meeting, but nevertheless, I will share it otherwise. And then after the whole of fund report, they'll produce an individual employer specific report, which we'll be able to then share with the employers and have the appropriate discussions with the employers as well. So this is likely to all happen before the end of the year. And then by the 31st of March, it's a requirement under the regulations for the actuary to sign a rates and adjustment certificate. And then the new employer contribution rates would then take effect from the 1st of April 2023. So we've done our work to get things ready. It's now with the actuary. And the next step for us is likely having to deal with any data queries that they might have, which does happen from time to time, process those in a timely manner to make sure they get the information back to be able to proceed and along with those timescales. So as I get more from the actuary, I will keep committee updated and board updated on what's available and when. Section 4 is a brief section on the pensions regulator, just to let you know they've published a blog which you might find interesting. The hyperlinks in the report, so please feel free to click on that and have a read. Section 5. Sorry, I am speeding through this, so please do stop me if you have any questions. Section 5 is talking about the risk register, and as the chair of the board mentioned previously, we've been working with the risk team at Powys County Council to make the risk register a helpful and more manageable document. It's a document we've had for several years and it's grown over time, and it was felt that maybe we could do things in a slightly better way to make it more manageable. We didn't have time to consider it as much as we would have liked at the last board meeting, but I have worked on it since then, and what you see in your pack, which I'll skip back to in a second, is the updated version of that. So Chair of the Board, Gerard, this is where I've got to after our meeting a couple of weeks ago, so hopefully it's more useful. So in the interest of time, it's in a new format, and I've broken it down by the 3 pillars. You'll hear me refer to 3 pillars a lot about governance, administration, and investment in more bite-sized chunks, so it's easy to focus on a specific area of the pension fund risk register. No new risks have been added, so it is the same as what committee have considered and board have considered and reviewed before, but it is presented in a new format. So hopefully it's easier for boards to be able to see. And if I jump back to this screen, hopefully, are you now seeing the Prudential letter scrolling in front of you? You are. Okay. So here is the risk register presented in its new format. It should be fairly explanatory. Hopefully we're all fairly used to seeing risk registers now. So I hadn't intended at this meeting, because of what's on the agenda, to go through it item by item. I thought perhaps we could pick that up with the pensions board at our interim meeting we're going to set up in the next few weeks, and obviously anything that comes out of that we can then feed back to committee and tackle it that way. Is that okay with everybody? Although I am obviously happy to work through it if you want to as part of this meeting now.
Members,
can I make an observation? Or
of course.
Oh yeah, I'll go down to Hugh, and then Daly wants to come in as well.
Yep, great.
No, I've glanced through it, and there's a lot of amber in the traffic light, and I'm surprised at that, because I believe that there's good practice being performed, or what have you, like, and is that to show ambition? And I do look at the controls and actions, but for the sake of the admin team, like, should there be more greener? Are we being a little bit coy, or is it a true reflection?
I think probably what it's reflecting here is that the fact that we, particularly in admin, I do take your point in respect of admin. I think it's probably because the outcome could be significant if we're not paying benefits on time and whatnot. Then it is a risk that we need to acknowledge. But perhaps that's something I can pick up with work through with the pensions board and see whether there's a way for us to reduce these risks. As I say, this is literally just a transfer of the information. So yeah, it could be a chance to review as well at the same time. can I consider that one? Come back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a good point, that was you. I didn't notice
Cheers.
that. We could do better, but David.
Thank you, Chair. Just a general observation on the risk register, if I may. And I've got a question on Russian investments, if I can just tag that on at the end. But as a new member of the committee, I was quite surprised to see the number of risks within the register. But when I actually drilled down into it, what did become apparent, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these risks appear to be inherent in the financial system itself. I'm no expert on pensions, but in that respect, you wouldn't expect some of them ever to turn green, because you can mitigate them to a certain degree, but there's a lot of uncertainty around them as well. And I was just wondering if that's a correct observation, because it seems to be more a case of mitigation than actually taking risk away completely. So would that be a fair observation, Chris?
I think that's an absolutely fair observation. Yeah, I think there's so much risk associated with the pension fund that we will never be able to completely mitigate a lot of it away. And as a service, we are so reliant on data, particularly in respect of receiving data and outputting data to financial systems and payroll systems. So I think you're probably right. It's a fair reflection of where we are. We can only put controls in place to try and mitigate it to a certain level. Whether they remain amber or green because of the mitigations and controls, that's probably something that we can look at in a bit more detail. But yeah, I would support your comment there, David. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just briefly going back to the Russian investments, I think you discussed this at your last meeting, but just to give me some clarity on this, what's the current level of scheme investment in Russian investments, and what was it back in April, May when the sanctions were applied?
I can answer the second part, what it was and the sanctions were applied. The exposure was 0.11% of the fund.
Right.
Back then. I don't know whether Aon colleagues have a more up-to-date information figure on that. We might have to come back to you on that one, David, if that's okay. But Aon are on the call. I don't know whether Aon are able to offer anything that might help answer that question.
It's probably something we need to come back on.
Okay.
For the precise number. My guess is it hasn't changed too much, perhaps edged a little bit downwards, but probably not significantly different to the 0.11%, but very happy to confirm that for you and come back.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks.
Okay with that, David. Okay, thank you. Jane?
Yeah, just to highlight really the colouring of the risks. It's not the same as some of the other brag status that we have across the council. When things are green, they're on track and so on. The colouring reflects the level of risk on those rather than us not manage them appropriately. So it's the general scoring system that we have within the council overall. So you've got pink, red, amber and green, I think, if I recall rightly, but you can see the score in there is a 4, which isn't, showing that the level of mitigation is really impacting on that risk. But David's absolutely right. You're never going to eliminate all of that risk. But that's why it's amber rather than green. So they're on track in terms of what we're doing, but that level of risk still remains at that level.
Can I ask, Chair, sorry, so what do the numbers mean then?
The numbers, the scoring system looks at a grid, so it's exactly the same as the council. So you've got a grid matrix scoring, I think, on 1 to 5, and you score against probability and impact. So if you've got a very low impact and a very low probability, it would score a 2, so it would be 1 and 1 on that grid matrix. Whereas if it's very high probability and a significant or catastrophic, I think, as we term it, it would score 25. So in terms of 4, I'm looking at the ones on the screen there, that's really quite low in terms of that risk matrix after we've put the mitigation in place.
Thank you for that, because I didn't know what the range was. So,
perhaps I could include something. So next time I present this, to precede the actual risk register, I can include something that explains the numbers,
matrix,
maybe.
Yeah. Sorry if I was a bit thick on that, but I have
no, good question.
Absolutely not.
That's fine, Hugh. This is the first time it's been presented to you in this format. So it's the first time you've seen it. So anything that I can take away to improve what I deliver to you in future, absolutely fine.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Adam?
Thanks for that. Can I sort of follow up on that? I had the same question, which is what factors go into making up the numbers? I'm left. I get what you say, Jane. I understand, impact versus probability, but it feels to me that we haven't got anything on here that's. We go and check. 10 hits red. My sense is, yeah. So my sense here is, the question is, why aren't we seeing anything above 10?
There is a 12 later on.
Is there a 12? Is there?
Oh, yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, we're only looking at the administration risk there, which perhaps that might be a little bit less than the investment risk, for example, or governance. There's a 12.
Yeah. So I suppose okay. I think what would be really helpful is that that matrix. It shows impact versus probability, and when the numbers go from amber to green, and etc. That was my one point. We just didn't understand how the numbers were arrived at. And bluntly, if our highest risk on the whole of the registration is 12 out of 25, that sort of surprises me slightly. You expect something to be somewhere out of kilter. I suppose I'd also like to reflect that the point was made that it'd be good to know which ones of these are within our control and which ones are without. The point was made about a number of these being sort of inherent in the pension system. Because otherwise we're potentially worrying about things that we can do nothing about.
Yeah.
So that would be good to know. And I suppose the third one is just inherent and residual. The phrase is inherent and residual. Inherent things as they're coming into us. Residual after we've taken the actions on the right.
Yes.
Okay. So and are we entitled to think that residual is where we are now?
Yes, essentially, after any mitigations that we put in place, residual is the score that the remaining risk that we see after carrying out these controls or actions or putting these procedures in place. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're considering things as a committee, then really we're looking at where we are on residual and whether we think there should be further to go, whether we think there's need in extra questions to be raised on the residuals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you, and yeah, look forward to a detailed discussion of it at the next meeting. But thank you for explaining its system.
Gerard.
Thank you, Chair. The 2 points I was going to make have both been made, so I'll just make one final comment for Chris, that the format and content here, I can see the significant improvements you've made since the draft version for the board.
Thank you, Gerard.
Okay, thanks, Gerard. Okay.
That was it, Chair. So thank you. I thank everybody for those comments. Those are really, really helpful. And next time you see this, we'll maybe take a deeper dive into it and present it with all those comments taken on board.
Sorry, Karina, you want to say something?
Hello. I'm going to have to admit to being the weak link here. I think everybody's moving a lot faster than I can currently. I mean, it's up to me to put some work in. That's fair. But I'm just saying, I'm acknowledging my lack of knowledge, I guess. So.
There's a lot to learn, Karina.
Yeah. So a basic induction. I know we've done one, but I could do with perhaps moving more slowly sometimes without annoying others.
No, it's quite good. It's good to ask questions. It's a learning curve. You're continually learning.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Adam, I know, Gerard, your hands are still up. Are they old ones?
I have one question, follow-up on the Russian question, if that's okay. So I appreciate it's a very low figure, and I think, Chris, you just touched on an explanation as to why we've not made progress on it. Could you just give me a little bit more flavour on why we haven't made progress, what this is about the Russian stock markets, and maybe an indication about when that changes?
Again, perhaps I might have to defer to my own colleagues being the investment specialist on that one, Adam, if that's okay. There's a couple of reasons, really. Some of the investments are built make it more complicated to move money because of the way the structures are built. But I think I'm right in saying the stock market isn't functioning as we were expecting. George, Kenneth, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the residual exposure that you've got is generally through the private equity arrangement that will come out over time, and there's a hedge fund arrangement as well. There was some exposure through your equities invested with BlackRock, and now the index providers and BlackRock themselves have worked to remove that exposure over time. But what we're hearing from the hedge fund management team is that the markets to release the cash weren't operational for quite a time, and now if they are operational, they don't think that they'll be able to actually get the cash from the market in Russia to wherever the underlying hedge fund is based, whether it's the US or the UK. So although the Powis exposure is small, it's within a pooled fund of multiple investors over the world. And although it wouldn't matter to Powis about losing that exposure entirely, really, it would matter to the underlying investment manager that's looking after the money on behalf of multiple investors. So that's the reason the residual exposure hasn't gone yet. But it is extremely small in terms of the remaining exposure. So we can confirm that to you after the meeting.
Joe,
thank you.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Over to you, Chris.
That was all I was planning on saying on that report, Chair.
Do you want to note it? What do we want to do? Note it? I see no more questions.
I don't think there was a recommendation. It was for noting, yeah.
Okay, are we happy to note this report? Thank you all for participation. The questions, good. Okay then. Item number 6, good governance.
Yep, that's me again. Thank you, Chair. Existing committee members will be aware that there's been an ongoing project run by the Scheme Advisory Board, which was looking at the governance arrangements within the LGPS, primarily around how procedures and policies are in place between the administering authorities and Powis County Council in this case, and the pension fund, and looking to make transparent all the links between the two, putting procedures in place and policies in place, but also making sure you have documents in place like business plans and conflicts of interest documents, those sorts of things. So this review was carried out over 3 phases, as you can see in point 2 there, and there's more information available in the hyperlinks, which provides more background to it. But essentially, it's looking at the governance arrangements around pension funds and administering authorities. But what they have done as part of the report was they did produce an action plan, which has been very, very helpful in us identifying where we might have areas that we need to strengthen. So what we've been doing is we've been working through those areas where we thought we could add some more improvements to, and that's what this report is covering. Some of the recommended actions are for local funds, some are for DLUC to implement. And I should say that this actually isn't in legislation yet. This is us getting ahead of the game and putting these things in place for when we know it's actually going to hit as a requirement. So we've been working through their action plan, which is attached in appendix or hyperlinked in 2.1. And three bullet points. One, which we'll come on to in a second, is the conflicts of interest policy. The knowledge and skills framework is also in a separate item, which I'll follow this one, and the business plan as well, which is an item in the confidential section. But we'll look at the conflicts of interest policy in a second, which is what I'd be asking you to consider and hopefully approve if you're happy with the content. But we've also been looking at lots of other things from the action plan, and I've picked out a couple really, which is cybersecurity. There's been some work going on within the council itself looking at response to cybersecurity threats and what would happen if the council network was unavailable, for example. So we've been working alongside that and are looking to put in place a document which is available on an externally hosted website. As a pension fund, we have a website which is hosted completely separate to the Powis network. So should the Powis network be compromised, we still have access to this information portal via our own website. So we're looking at producing a document on there which we'll be able to refer to kind of direct what we need to do in the case of any major incident. The council itself also has a major incident response plan, which is what we would use as a pension fund and follow that should anything happen to the Powis network. We would follow the process in that document. But I thought it was important to make committee aware as well that should anything happen to the council network, we've been thinking about how would that impact on our day-to-day work. As a pension fund, what could we do if we didn't have access to Powis's network? And I'm pleased to say that for the main core business, which is administrating the LGPS, paying our scheme members, managing the scheme on our scheme members and employers' behalf, we're also externally hosted from the council network. So if the council network went down, we would still be able to carry on the bulk of the day-to-day work. because of this remote hosting that we have. So it's an extra bit of security, another layer of security that we have that's available to us that we're able to implement, and that's provided by our pension administration software providers, and I receive annual updates from them on the levels of security they have in place. And it essentially is like a digital Fort Knox. They've got so many levels of security within there. So just to give committee a bit of assurance around the fact that we are fairly resilient when it comes to the procedures we have in place when it comes to cyber.
Chris, I think David has got his hand up. He wants to ask a question. David?
Yeah, I think a bit premature. I think Chris has actually answered what I was going to ask. The final sentence there in 3.1 where it states regular assurances are sought from the pensions administration software providers. I was going to ask, what form that takes, but I think Chris has already answered that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
Hugh? You're on mute, Hugh, if you're trying to speak.
Sorry, Chair. Chris, you mentioned that it was externally hosted. Is that externally hosted from the pension section? Is it still within Powys County Council, or do you mean actually externally hosted?
Yeah, it's hosted. I don't know the technical detail, but I think they host it over 2 sites. So again, for disaster recovery purposes, if anything happened to one of their sites, they can immediately go to Plan B and get us functioning on a second site. But externally hosted from Powys County Council. I believe I don't know where their servers are, but they have offices in Altrincham and in Redhill, I think, in the UK.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, awesome. That's something new. Great, thanks. Thanks, Hugh. Over to you, Chris. Okay,
thank you, Chair. So that was really the last point there is about the business plan, which we've got as a separate item in the confidential section. So really, it's to consider the conflict of interest policy now, if that's okay, which I'll scroll down to. This is just the action plan that was produced as a result of the good governance guide, which we've used to work on. So the conflict of interest policy.
Chris.
Yes.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just ask?
I didn't see your hand.
That's all right. That's all right. I put it up quite late. It was a cybersecurity question. So you've described, where they're based and where they're offshore, and given some reassurances that it sounds like Fort Knox. Do these things get externally verified, rated?
Yes.
By anybody else? I know you'll do your own due diligence on them, but how do we get a badge of assurance? Or
well, I met with them, I think it was in January actually, to discuss what they do, and they do all sorts of third-party testing. I can't remember the names of who does that, but I can find out some more information and present that to committee. But yeah, they essentially carry out all sorts of penetration testing, various layers, and they send over the certificates that they achieve as well in respect of what they've achieved. So can you leave that on with me, and I'll try and find some more information to share?
Yeah, it was just that when we buy things, we rely on things like kite marks and BS standards, don't we? That in which we place faith. I sort of don't know what the equivalent of that is for cyber security, but yeah, I'm sure there's one there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Adam. Gerard.
Yeah, just thank you, Chair. Just quickly to add to the discussion on cyber. Obviously, this has come to the committee via the Scheme Advisory Board route on good governance. But in addition to that, the pension regulator is now incredibly focused on cybersecurity as a risk to pension funds. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Gerard. Would you, Chris?
Okay, thank you. Okay, if I just move on to the conflicts of interest policy then. Sorry, I've skipped past. Essentially, what this is doing is this is a conflicts of interest policy for the pension fund, which is monitored and maintained by the pension fund manager. So my role would monitor this. This is set out for anybody who is involved with the pension fund, essentially. So that'll be committee members, board members, officers, and any third parties that we might engage to do any work for us, for example, like Aon on the call today. So should this be approved, I'll be sharing this document with those providers as well. But essentially what this is trying to do is to keep a register of any potential conflicts that might exist between anybody involved with the fund. I've tried to make it as comprehensive as I can in providing detail as to why it's in place, what it's aiming to do, and as I say, to whom this policy would apply. What I thought might be useful, I also include a couple of appendixes at the end, which I'll come on to, which are examples of risks that could potentially come up and to give us some help in completing these forms. There's some legislative background as to what the scheme is and the various legislation that we have to abide by and what the scheme comes under. And also some good principles that are out there as well in terms of SIP firm and good public office procedures that are out there as well. So try to consider all those things and trying to bring it all into one document, which will be published. So it'll be made available to public. So public are aware of what sort of things we consider when it comes to managing conflicts of interest or even potential conflicts of interest within managing the fund. And there's a list of who it would apply to in front of you there: committee, board, employees, advisors, etc. I've tried to make it easy to understand by saying what could a potential conflict of interest be, by providing some examples there, and what we might be able to do to manage them. So it's a fairly comprehensive document. I guess probably the best thing to do is open it up to committee to see if they've got any questions or if they're happy to approve it. The next steps would be, if you're happy to approve it, then I would work through it with the monitoring officer and get it published as soon as possible, and then we'd adopt the process and procedures that I've outlined in it, which is essentially carrying out a conflicts of interest check, keeping it on the register, annually reviewing the conflicts of interest and updating the register accordingly should any changes happen. Oh yes, and there's also a proposal that it wouldn't be an annual review in terms of the policy, because we don't expect the procedures around the fund to change. So I've built it in to be a triennial review. However, that's just up to committee to consider. So, but right, it'd be an annual review of the conflicts, but a 3-yearly review of the actual policy itself. So,
sorry, Gerard, is that a legacy hand or you put your hand up?
It was just basically, Chair, going to add that again, this is an area that pension regulator is very hot on.
Yeah, perhaps I could also add, the chair of committee and board, is that it has actually been through pensions board as well, and this is an updated version to reflect the review that the pension board did a couple of weeks ago as well.
Okay, thanks.
So these are, I'm scrolling through now. It's just an example of the type of questions that we'll be asking.
Could I just ask for some clarity, Chair, please?
Go on, David.
On page 5 of the reports, page 55 of the documents, there's a paragraph there. I think it's the second paragraph from the top, basically, that refers to an exemption if you're a member of a scheme, but it refers to any connected scheme. What's any connected scheme? You see it. It's the top of page 5 of the document, or page 55 of the total agenda report today.
Is it this paragraph here?
It starts the Act defines a conflict of interest, a financial or other interest, and it refers to an exemption, but does not include. And then it says on the very end there, any connected scheme. I was just curious as to what that was, what it's referred to.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yes, I've got you now. Just reading that through. So the next one. I think I'll have to take that one away if that's okay, and just clarify that one, what I was thinking when I wrote this, if that's all right. I've probably picked up the wording from another document that's helped me support and produce this. So can I come back to you on that one, just to confirm?
Yeah, that's fine, Chris. Okay. I was just curious. It doesn't affect me in any way whatsoever. I'm not a member of the scheme. I'm retired anyway, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I think what I've tried to do, I tried to be all encompassing in this document. So it's trying to make sure I tick all the boxes, but I will confirm that one for you.
Yeah. Okay.
David, thanks.
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, Chris.
That was it, Chair. And then it was just to say that I'll keep a log of this and I'll monitor it, and it'll become part of a periodic, regular annual exercise for us, in the same way that we do with our training needs analysis, which I'll also come on to later on. So it's over to committee really for any comment or hopefully approval, and I can put this in place accordingly.
Is that a legacy hand, David, or are you gonna have a question? I can't see any other hands up. Any questions? Okay, Oh, Adam.
So, just to refer, yes, very comprehensive. Lots of background in there, so that was actually quite helpful. Just checking with you, this is something we now need to go ahead and fill in. This is the register that hasn't previously existed, is new.
Yeah, correct.
And we've got once we approve this, we've got a piece of work to do, which is to write down our interests and submit them to you, so you compile from scratch.
Yeah. Absolutely correct. Yes, this is a brand new document, and something that's well, yeah. To answer your question, David, Adam, yes. Sorry.
Adam, is it separate from what you do as a councillor? Is Chris? Is this part of the pension? You do disclosure conflicts, or as you become a councillor as well, don't you?
Yeah. This is
separate. Chris keeps all this.
Yes.
Yeah. Understood.
Hugh.
No, I think you may have just answered that, because if you are describing your own personal financial issues, if it's a public document, there is a bit of a conflict there, I would suggest, but it's held by the pension by Chris, but not necessarily open to the public. Is that
correct?
Thank you for that. Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Is a legacy hand on? No question, Adam.
Legacy hand going down.
Okay, lovely. Okay, no more questions. Okay, then there's one part is it to note. There's two parts to this, isn't there, Chris?
There is, yeah. So note the information provided, and then approve the conflict of interest policy as it's separate action.
Okay. Members, can I pause a second to note this report, please?
Yeah, happy to move.
Thank you. I will second it, please.
I'm happy to second it. I've read
okay.
it.
Everybody happy? I'll go by your silence.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. 2, to approve the conflict of interest policy. Proposals, are you happy with it, to approve it?
Yeah.
Errol, thank you.
Happy to second.
There we are.
Thank you. Yeah, lovely. Everybody happy? Once again, I'll go by you. Thanks, Karina. Looks, nobody shouting. Okay, thank you very much. Item 7, knowledge and skills framework, including member training. Chris again.
Yep, over to me. Thank you very much again, Chair. Again, don't intend to spend too much time on this one, everybody. It is what it is. So essentially, it's part of the good governance project. There's requirements to log, register training, but also to assess skills and knowledge of committee members and decision makers. So in our case, it's the Pension Investment Committee. We were doing this anyway as part of an annual exercise where I was sending out this knowledge and skills framework. So this is for your information, just to let you know that I have transferred it across to a pension fund document, so it looks consistent. So as you see policies and things that I present to you, they will all look like you see on the screen in front of you. No text has changed. It's simply been transferred across into a pension fund branded, I guess you could say, document. But the second request is, please can you complete the knowledge and skills assessment as follows from on page 74. What I will do is I will circulate this document separately outside the meeting as a Word document, so you can populate it directly as a Word document. But I thought I'd present it to you just so you can have an idea of what's coming your way. So as I say, it's come about because it's in the Good Governance project. We need to log training. So every time you do attend a webinar or anything to do with pensions related, please can let me know so I can log it for our records. But on completing this training needs analysis form, what it will do is it will allow me to build a heat map so I can identify where I can focus training for committee. We've already talked about, Karina mentioned earlier on about the training needs. This will help me build an individual training plan and a group training plan as well. So after the meeting, I'll circulate this document. Please can you send it back to me, and be honest, if you don't know anything about any areas, please just let me know. It's not going anywhere else apart from my desktop to allow me to build a training plan. So let me identify any gaps and any areas we're strong on and focus our training needs accordingly. So that was it on that item, Chair. Happy to take any questions or
any questions. As you see, we got a little bit of work answering some
it's quite lengthy. I do apologise. Yeah.
So it does say with the 151 obviously, isn't it? The gene interrogators. David, got a hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question on that, Chair, if I may. Is it possible to complete all the required training via e-learning?
I think it's probably a hybrid now, actually, David, to be honest. There's a lot more of it since we have gone remote working. There's a lot more webinars and things available like that. And we have actually got some sessions. We're working with our colleagues in Aon, both on the investment and the actuarial side, to build some training sessions already. And those will cover various bits to help the new committee members get up to speed a bit quicker. So you will see something from me in the near future with some dates. I'm looking at like a 2-hour, 3-hour session, perhaps an afternoon or a morning on a specific subject over the next few months. So bite-sized training. It can be in person or virtual, but it is proposed or suggested that we do the next training sessions virtually so we can record them as well, so you can revisit them. But to answer your question, in future, we'll likely do a hybrid, but the immediate training will probably be online.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
You are allowed, the WPP put training courses on as well, don't they, Chris?
Absolutely.
Which will invite the members, not just me as a member of JTC, open to committee members as well. So
board members and officers as well, actually, in some cases. Yes, that's right.
Okay. So what we do recommendation that as per the report, is it?
Yes, please, Chair. So it's essentially, if I just scroll back up to recommendation, it's that you, I guess, that you note that I've transferred the document across the Powys branding, but really it's that please the request to complete the training needs analysis. As I say, I will circulate a Word version to make it easier for you to do after the meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Chris. So you'll email us. Okay, are we happy then?
Yeah.
Thank you. I heard Hugh. Errol.
Yeah.
That's nodding. Great. All happy. Thank you. Next, just go get into my agenda. Wales Pension Partnership update. Chris?
Yep, thank you very much, Chair. I'm just scrolling down now to bring it up on screen for you. So again, existing committee members will be aware that I bring a Wales Pension Partnership, a WPP update to each committee meeting just to show the work that's been ongoing in the quarter. They're covered really in points 2, well, part of section 2, I should say. We've been looking a lot at responsible investments, private markets, and the business plan, which is I'll come on to in a sec because that'll need approval from committee. But one of the key developments that's happened over the past quarter is that, well, certainly over the past 6 months, is that the Wales Pension Partnership have now become a signature to the UK Stewardship Code. And that's good news because what that does, it sets a really high bar for stewardship in terms of investments and ongoing monitoring of investments as well. It's not a case of you become a signatory and that's it. You have to keep on proving that you meet the requirements to become a signatory. So the fact that WPP have actually attained this is good, pleasing, and it demonstrates the intention behind investments in Wales. We're all moving towards that direction of being responsible investors and making sure we maintain it as well as improve it. So that's excellent news. There's been a lot of work going on in terms of new sub-funds, which I know we're going to discuss in another part of the meeting, but there's a list in front of you there about some appointments in respect of some private market investments that will be appearing for us to be able to invest into should we choose to. And work is ongoing as well in terms of the private equity asset class as well. We'll come on to this a little bit more when Aon do their update in the confidential part of the meeting, but important to let you know that there's been a lot of work going on in terms of investment vehicles for the constituent authorities. One thing that the WPP do very well, in my opinion, is they produce a very comprehensive business plan, which has been included as part of your pack. But what this does, as part of the inter-authority agreement for the Wales Pension Partnership, is that it does require each individual committee approval that they're happy that the WPP progress as outlined. I should say as well that this business plan has been approved by the Joint Governance Committee at the WPP level. So it's now filtering down to each of our individual committee levels now to go through it. And if you're happy with the content, then to approve it as well. I can then get back to WPP to say that, yeah, we've discussed it and we've approved it. And that satisfies that part of the inter-authority agreement. So I hadn't planned on going through it page by page because it's a very comprehensive document, but hopefully you've had the chance to have a look at it. And if you're happy with the content, then if you could approve it, I can then get back to the WPP to say that Powys are happy with the content and please proceed according to the business plan. So that was it really. It's over to committee now if they've got any questions or any comments on the document.
Any questions? Can't see any hands up. Is everybody happy? Everybody happy to note the content and report? Proposer seconder, please.
It is to note, is it, Chair?
The 1 point recommendations, 1 is to note the content of the report, then 2 to approve the Wales Pension Partnership 2022-2025 business plan. Yeah. Oh, Adam, you got a question?
On the business plan, Chris, there's a lot in there, and there's a newbie. It's very hard to, bring any sort of critical thinking, any judgment to it. So I suppose you have two questions. I'm sort of wondering whether Gerard and his gang have looked at it, and his committee. Sorry, his board.
They have.
And that'd be good to get Gerard's just a perception take on it from an experienced eye, and likewise yourself, Chairman. And so that would be good for us newbies to get a sense of how the more experienced hands here are viewing this. And then my question really was about when does it get reviewed? What opportunities appear down the line for looking at it, considering it? Are we doing it? Is it goes through an annual review?
It does, yeah. Okay, thanks, Adam. Just to give you a bit of background on it then. So essentially this plan is built with input from the 8 Welsh Funds officers. So we'll get around the table as part of one of the groups and work with the host authority, which is Carmarthen, to build the initial document. That then goes through the officer working group, which is the group of Section 151 officers and senior officers within the 8 authorities. They will approve it. At that stage, it goes up to the Joint Governance Committee, which is made up of the chairs of the 8 committee, obviously, which our chair sits on. They approve it at that stage as well. So it goes through quite a lot of steps with the group involvement to actually be produced. I guess that's the first point. In terms of what we've done locally, I have taken this to the Pensions Board. So this has also been reviewed by Gerard and the Pensions Board. And any comments that come out of that, I can feed back to the Wales Pension Partnership. But obviously the chair of our committee has seen this document before and as part of the Joint Governance Committee and approved it. And it's, I believe that it's an annual review. So I know it's the business plan for 2020, is it 2022-25? It might update, well, the likelihood is that we will update it in the next 12 months as well to actually move that on 1 year. So taking into account what we've passed 2022. So yes, it's an annual review as well.
Yeah, it is always updated, Adam. It's always, we go through it every year, really. It's just to check it's still relevant.
Yeah. Okay. Is that okay? Is that okay, Adam? So I can't see your face, so hopefully that's okay.
Yeah, Adam's his hand's gone down.
Okay.
Yeah,
Adam?
no. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely.
On that basis, I'm happy to approve it.
Lovely. To note, where are we? Yeah. What was the?
So it's note in my report of the work.
So we're happy to note Chris's report, please. Somebody.
Yeah.
Lovely. Seconder, please.
Yeah, whatever. I'm proposal second.
Lovely. Okay, and then we're happy. As I can't see all the screen, I'll go by your silence. Thank you. Then to approve. To approve it.
Yes, and then to approve the WPP business plan, please, so I can go back to WPP.
Approve the WPP business plan. Proposer, please.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. If
you, thank you. Seconding. Are we happy? Go by your silence again. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll just bring it back to. Now we're going to a confidential session. You're happy to go for us to move into confidential session, excluding press and public, and everybody else who's not meant to be here.
I'll propose that. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Second, please.
Yep.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay then.
Chair, before you move, I just need to stop the recording.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.